r/ask Reddit. What was the incident at your school? Junior year, a sophomore boy put a sealed container of chicken noodle soup in an empty locker next to the chemistry room. It sat there for months, easily 5 or 6, until somebody thought about it again. It was brought up in chemistry class, 11th grade, and our chemistry teacher took a pair of tongs to the locker and planned to dispose of it once and for all. His hands were too shaky that day, and as soon as he lifted it out of the locker it fell, spilling the entire cesspool that the chicken noodle soup became. He immediately ran back to his room, screaming, "Oh God, shut the doors, shut the doors," and hilarity ensued. The smell was indescribable. Raw sewage, rotten chicken, fermented noodles all mixed into one. I have never and probably will never smell anything remotely close to it again. The smell permeated the entire floor and even seeped down the stairwell next to the spill to the classrooms immediately below. The day of the disaster, everyone gagged as they traveled through the halls. Luckily it happened during 8th period, last period before we went home. A hazmat team was called to take care of the spill, just in case there were airborne diseases. For the rest of the school year, the teachers lit candles in the hallways and in their classrooms, but the smell never left us. It stayed all summer and even into the next school year until it finally went away altogether. The chemistry teacher who dropped the soup is actually now my stepfather, and we recount this story at least once a year and laugh our asses off. It is one of my best memories of high school. How'd that happen? Last bit. Edit. You have 8 periods? We have 7 max, and now I'm in 6th year, I have 4 maximum. Edit 2. I get it, your high school had 9 periods, lol. Edit 3. I am not in 6th grade. Haha. Well, he probably married Arp's mom. Exchange student from Scotland went around ducking any guy she could. She was finally caught in a gangbang in the school barn with like 5 other students. Is no one else wondering what the hell a school barn is? It's the designated gangbang area. There was a big brawl in our parking lot with a bunch of black kids against a bunch of white kids. It was over drugs. The school went bonkers thinking it was a racist thing. Yeah, thank Christ it was only drugs, right? Look, a good old-fashioned commercial dispute is a lot better than a race war. Senior prank consisted of dumping month-old fish into the air duct from the roof. They couldn't figure out what was going on at first. School was closed for a week. Hazmat was called, and ultimately after the police got involved for vandalism, the kids responsible fessed up and got community service hours. Good times. White kids always fess up to this stuff. They don't know how to clam up around cops. At a private Christian school, a girl in 12th grade got pregnant. According to the official rules, she was supposed to be expelled to protect the school's image. Instead, all the teachers and principals got together and decided that that's not what Jesus would do, and that the rule was idiotic. They didn't expel her and gave her all the support she needed during the pregnancy and after. Glad to see true Christian spirit in this day and age. Edit. Thank you all for making this my top comment by a wide margin. This story is so heartening. There are still several Christian schools, high schools and colleges in the South that will expel girls for getting pregnant, but not the guy that got them pregnant. It was a week more than a single incident. Middle school at a school for gifted children. First 2 or 3 of those geniuses tried to light the ducking forest on fire beside the school. They failed, but severely burned themselves in the process. Second, somehow a kid got run over by a bus. I don't know if I ever remembered the details. Just that bus service was cancelled and the kid never came back to school. Third, somebody spray painted Mr. Rape's little girls ask on the wall of the school. It was a girl I knew. And it turned out, apparently he actually did some really horrible shit with to her, and then he killed himself. I think it was that weekend. There were so many assemblies and other things at the time. It's all fun and games until someone burns themselves, gets run over by a bus, and then helps expose a crime. Sounds like a good premise for a young adult mystery novel. In elementary school, all the boys got sent outside the last hour of class and lined up because someone had smeared their shit all over in the men's bathroom. Open bracket. I know now that they were looking at our fingernails because most kids aren't smart enough to clean under them. They told us to all hold out our hands and would send us back to class one by one after looking at them. But did they catch the crack bandit? Yes. I'll never forget it, was this kid named Jonathan. He got sent to in-school suspension, and like that scene in Shawshank Redemption, he turned on the radio and put it next to the PA microphone. He was a bad kid. Someone stole a urinal from one of the boys' bathrooms in high school. All year the principal went on about how if we knew anything we should come forward because we must stop the bathroom bandits. Of course no one came forward because once the bathroom bandits had a name they became legend. I never did find out who they were, but someone found the urinal 3 years later, hidden under some stairs behind the auditorium. A good distance from the bathroom it was taken from. One of the big 6 feet plus tough students who had a bit of a reputation as a bully and troublemaker decided he was going to try and intimidate one of the art teachers under the mistaken impression that just because Mr. Scott was only 5'5" in his socks and about 55 kgs wringing wet that Mr. Scott would be a pushover. He didn't know that before Mr. Scott trained to be a teacher, Mr. Scott was in the army, and whilst he was in the army Mr. Scott was the divisional weight champion for boxing in Australia. He tried to push Mr. Scott out of the way and when that didn't work he tried to punch him. Mr. Scott punched him on the jaw and knocked him out. And before anyone says it was wrong, this was 1977. My school still had corporal punishment. Teachers could and did smack you round the head if you were being a dong. You certainly never ever laid a hand on a teacher. Talking back got you the cane or ruler. So that's why this was the biggest incident at my school. My English teacher served in both the Marines and Army in joint operations. A student tried something like this once. He just told the student, if you're going to hit me, hit me. When the student did, he caught the punch and threw him to the ground. No one tried starting shit with this teacher again. My teacher was none of these. In fact, he didn't have legs, just prosthetics. Didn't stop him from slamming a linebacker against the lockers to stop a fight. Edit. I can't remember if 1 or 2 legs were prosthetic. I've posted this before but I figure these threads could always use some more positive stories. My high school was relatively free from bullying, but the biggest hullabaloo surrounded a mildly autistic student we had who was the subject of some tormenting from his classmates. Some jack-offs figured out they could make him lose his cool by repeatedly clicking their pens and then acting like they couldn't hear it. It got so bad he had to leave class crying. Our history teacher, whom the whole school liked, went on to become principal, went door to door in every classroom to explain to the students what was going on. Rather than talk about bullying, he simply told us that he had thought better of us and was very disappointed to be proven wrong. Sometime the next week someone was clicking the pens again to rile the poor student up when quarterback of our football stood up, walked over to the kid doing the clicking, took his pens, books, and backpack and threw it all in the garbage before returning to his seat. The English teacher leading the class acted like they hadn't seen a thing. The bullying stopped after that. Not a juicy scandal, but I figured I'd contribute a more positive story amidst all the student-teacher ducking. Our entire offensive line of the football team came up with the idea to rob a local franchise restaurant in shop class. One of the kids worked there, and the rest came in with airsoft guns, assaulted an elderly man, held their friend up. He was in on it. They took the proceeds, had dinner at Applebee's, and divided up the rest amongst the co-conspirators. They were tracked down easily because they used a kid who had 32 scholarship offers, brand new Denali with chrome rims and custom tinted windows. One went to jail, the others were put on probation, and all the schools rescinded their offers. I was happy because about 2 weeks before this went down they pulled up next to my middle school aged brother and dumped a 2-liter of orange soda on his head. Oh, and after the cost of dinner, they each got $6 apiece. The thing was, these kids were the aberration when it came to the football team. Everyone else on the team was super nice, went out of their way to help disabled students and shut down anyone who was bullying others. Other than the shitty ones mentioned above, the football players were well known for being an approachable group who did the right thing, and they would go out of their way to help others in need. One thing that stands out is that senior year they waged a campaign to make sure a special needs kid got on the homecoming court after having a really rough couple of months with his parents divorcing. They even carried him in on their shoulders after it was announced he had won a spot. I'm pretty sure the kid was on suicide watch for a time. And, for the rest of the year, the team made it their mission to make sure he had a proper group of support and to include him in as many things as they could. That and their record was like 8-1. when there are well over 1,000 students in each grade. The popular ones at the exclusive non-awkward teens who beat up on the weak, but the ones who go out of their way to be awesome people. One day in gym class all the males left gym and went to see this massive shit someone left in the men's room. It was so huge it clogged the toilet itself without the use of any paper. One of the guys tried to flush it and it seemed to just make a huge suction until thump it all went down in one go. Everyone laughed and returned to gym. Then, it happened again. Basically the same thing. Administrator of our school had an assembly saying that all the boys needed to flush the toilets and that the hallways smelled like shit. One of the male teachers standing behind me at the assembly said you couldn't flush it. It was as big as your arm. Edit. Thanks for the gold. This happened in Pennsylvania. The teacher that made the arm comment was a Swedish guy in charge of our IT program at the school. I imagine that teacher saying it like he'd just seen a ghost. You weren't there. You didn't seen what I saw. Catholic school. Female student caught at lunch giving 2 simultaneous hand jobs to 2 male students on either side of her under the lunch table. Caught by cafeteria staff nun. Girl was known as the skier for the duration of her education there. I've always wondered how shit like this happens. Does the girl ask the guys? Vice versa? Do all 3 parties look at each other and just nod knowingly at the same time? Kid managed to put a pencil through his foot in the middle of lunchtime. I was still in line and saw the entire cafeteria stand up and go running towards the windows. He'd apparently been trying to break the pencil by stepping on it but instead managed to put it through his foot, to the point where it came out the top. There was so much screaming. A kid stabbed me in the hand with a pencil. Only went about halfway through, but it seriously hurt. Edit. The funny part of this is all the people commenting and PMing me trying to figure out if they know me. Dozens of people have responded saying they also got stabbed and it seems like it's a fairly common occurrence, so no, I'm not that person you know. During my senior year, 2 sophomore girls committed suicide within a few days of each other. It was really unsettling and the entire school was very quiet for a few weeks. There was also an English teacher that got fired because a student found porn on his school computer. That's terrible. You really brought some levity to this. A girl in our school just disappeared one day. Rumors that she was pregnant, etc. Some glitch in the system had her on the honor roll every semester. They'd call her name in assembly every time. Well, I knew her. She wasn't pregnant. Just dropped out, and when I told her name kept getting called for honors, she thought it would be hilarious to actually show up and collect her gift cards. That was the prize. So she did, with a fake baby in her arms. Then spiked the baby on the stage. Damn Jess, you were nuts. I dated her for a few years in college. It went as expected, but that's another story. I won the college story. We were both 16. Her ex was 35. She learned a lot about sex from being his skettle. I was pretty much a virgin. My innocence extended to the point where I didn't notice her ducking half the school behind my back. That's pretty much it. You can extrapolate the rest. It's not an original story. There was also the time where a kid died in the courtyard after practicing wrestling moves, falling and hitting his head on the bench. As someone who saw him fall, be resuscitated by a teacher, and then die, it was pretty traumatic. That was probably the main incident until a couple of years later when another kid died after getting hit by a car after school. We sadly had a kid who climbed up the closed bleachers, ones that could pull away from the wall, and dove into a soccer netting of some type head first as a prank. We think he did not survive. Edit. And a girl I rode the bus with went missing and was found dead under a pile of smoldering tires. She was still alive when they set the tires on fire. And 2 girls a few years younger than me got in a car with an older guy they knew who took them out in the woods and beat them both with a baseball bat. One to death and the other survived by crawling to a road. Damn. It sounds like I grew up in a rough area, but not really. Second edit. So apparently some of you are saying none of this is true. It indeed is. But I'm not going to provide the name of the area since I'd like to keep my specific location private. Also, I'm old, so this was a long time ago, like pre-internet. So if you're trying to search any of it, you won't find it. Last year I did try to look up info on the baseball bat case, because I was curious what sentence the guy got and if he was still locked up. After a ton of digging, I only found one legal paper about an appeal he tried. Final edit. I was looking up the wrong name. The guy is in prison for life. First degree murder and rape. And he didn't actually know the girls. The other girl recovered and testified. Jesus Christ, those are all ducking awful. Kind of calls into question your username : In year 7. We had a storm and the winds were so strong they blew the roof off. We were all evacuated and sent home and then had 2 or 3 weeks off school after that, and the top floor of the school was blocked off for months. Edit 1. This happened in Blackpool, England. Edit 2. Year 7 is the first year in high school which you start when you're 11. Was your school a shack by any chance? It was built in the 50s I think and wasn't looked after very well. It's actually in the process of being rebuilt at the moment. The battle of the sexes. The teacher got fired that day because of what happened. She was supposed to be monitoring recess. I'm not really sure what prompted this. Probably nothing. But there was an all-out boys versus girls war. I remember swinging from the handlebars at the top of the slide and kicking a girl in the face. She dropped like 9 feet. Not long after 2 more girls came. Each one grabbed one of my legs and then just hopped off the ladder. I hit my jaw falling down and bit my tongue really bad. Lots of kids, including myself, had to go to the nurse. They cancelled school that day and had a meeting with the parents the following week. Why was there a kiddie brawl to begin with? I don't know, man. This was back in the time when I was eating live ants. First day of school this year, a couple got suspended for having oral sex in the hallway. Jesus Christ. High schoolers today are retarded. Back in my day we went to one of the soundproof practice rooms in the band hall if we needed to get sucked off, suck somebody off. Guess how many times we got caught? Exactly. Twice. In hindsight we should have waited till the band finished practice. The origin story of the hacker named 4chan. You done messed up here, Ron. Edit. Fixed AC. When I was in high school we had an outdoor discovery class that was basically just a giant ropes course. The teacher for that class was a nice middle-aged man. One day he decided to take a shower in the locker room between periods and had a stroke. Now I don't know what about this stroke was different, but it made him decide he needed to go for a jog around the high school and middle school, naked as the day he was born. So he's butt naked, sprinting past classroom windows in just his socks and sneakers, which he somehow thought to put on, when a sub goes outside to see what's going on when the outdoor teacher runs over and basically starts playing a game of catch me if you can until the ambulance arrives. It was a very odd day, but he was back to work a couple weeks later, making kids swing from ropes and climb over logs like normal. Edit. Just saw I got a bunch of replies. To clarify, no, he was not a druggie and didn't go on a bender. He was an older man, outdoorsman, healthy and didn't give off any kind of drug vibe. It is possible, as some have pointed out, that he had an underlying condition that somehow got triggered and led to this. He was a nice guy even after this happened. Probably a little embarrassed about everyone seeing his birthday suit, but he carried on. In college, we had the poop bandit, less one incident and more a string of them. Some of his exploits: shit in the washers in the men's freshman dorm. They were all top loaders and not many checked them. He'd shit in a random one every couple of weeks. Left pizza boxes in the co-ed dorm common areas with shit in them. Set it up so that it looked like, hey, free pizza. Forced the elevator door open and the co-ed dorm a floor above the elevator and shit on top. It took a week for anyone to figure out why the elevator stank. Why? He was so preoccupied with whether or not he could, he didn't stop to think if he should. The high school cop was fired for molesting a 10-year-old girl. He then murdered his wife and fled. He's on America's top 10 Marshals top 15 most wanted list now. His mom thinks he's dead. His name was Dan Hires. A literal bomb was dropped in my school playground. We lived in Yuma aside the Air Force Base and there were constant training and testing exercises. Often they'd drop dummy bombs into the proving grounds to practice accuracy. Well, one day a rookie accidentally dropped a dummy into our school playground at 5 in the morning. The military went in to collect it and realized that some idiot had loaded a real bomb into the plane that morning and what was laying there could have caused quite a crater. School called everyone and said school was cancelled for the day. I'm not too sure what happened to the trainee or the person who loaded the bomb. It's an entertaining story to tell though. This seems like some Back to the Future type shit. How often do real bombs not explode? Edit. Seems people knowledgeable on the subject have replied with an explanation. Edit 2. Now my most rated post ever. Narrowly beating out a submission in r/2007 scape about player harassment and another in r/Emma about how I executed an entire family of baby bunnies because my parents are filthy liars. Probably didn't explode because it was loaded as a dummy and thus wasn't fused or had arming wire attached. Ammunition like that is fairly inert without a good explosive train to set it off. In my elementary school, the vice principal started sleeping with the principal's husband. It was a very small town, so word spread fast. The husband ended up leaving the principal, his wife of like 20 something years, and married his mistress vice principal. The principal retired shortly after, and the vice principal was so hated on that they ended up having to leave town. Small towns are ducked. Edit. This was almost 20 years ago. I did some sleuthing and found out that the cheating homewreckers are still married, and the principal moved back to Ontario and looks like she also remarried. Hopefully everyone is happy now. One Friday afternoon some kids played football in the schoolyard. Schoolyards are generally the only places here where you can play football here. Some older kids came, threatened the younger kids who played, and the younger ones ran away. Then the younger kids returned, backed with some older kids, baseball bats and brass knuckles. It was one of the most violent scenes in the city in years. This caused the city council to lock all schools and other public places that have football basketball fields the entire weekend. Every weekend. X gone give it to ya. Back in middle school, someone pooped in a urinal. This probably wouldn't have been such a big deal if this hadn't happened. Kid asks to go to the restroom. He leaves. He comes back to class 2 minutes later, right in the middle of an important lecture by the teacher, and literally the moment he gets into the door he shouts at the top of his lungs, "There's a turd in the pee thing." It's been 14 years and I'm still convinced I haven't yet laughed as hard as I did that day. 2 kids got in a fight in 9th grade and one of the kids got punched in the stomach so hard he pooped himself. It landed on the floor. In high school, it was discovered that thousands of dollars were unaccounted for in the school's funding. A week later, that number increased to $50, 000 and then $100, 000 and then $400, 000, etc. It turned out that the superintendent of our district and his secretary had ended up embezzling millions of dollars from the school district. Upon further investigation of our superintendent, it was also discovered that he was living with a man in Manhattan while also owning a house in Las Vegas in which he lived with a male exotic dancer while claiming to be a widower whose wife passed away at a young age from cancer. Some of the details may be off since I'm recalling this from memory, but yay, that's the basic gist of our incident. Someone set off a pepper spray bomb in the hallway after lunch. We were evacuated to the building next door and only directly related family members were allowed to pick us up. My neighbor drove my sister and I to school, so we were stuck there for like 3 hours. Also that was on my birthday. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.